Hi, I'm Nathan Hill.
And I'm Jeanette Coppolino.
Hi Nathan and Jeanette, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you for having us.
Congrats on wrapping Disconnected.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What was it like working together on the movie?
Man, it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was
so
awesome.
good.
We had so much fun.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to have my block sort of all in one go. So I just filmed straight for 7 days out in Daylesford and then I was done. So that was like
Clean.
when did we March?
That would have been it. Yeah, let's say Easter.
Yeah, like Easter time,
Yeah.
last year,
The first block.
2022. Yeah, so for me it was nice. I mean, I know for you it was, for everyone else it was dragged out over
A little bit longer,
a bit
yeah.
longer
2
because
blocks.
of all of the other stuff that had to be filmed. But
Yep.
yeah, I was lucky enough to get it all smashed out in 7 days, and so it was nice to just have that continuous, being in character.
Stay in character and just get it done.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with indie film as well, because you never quite know what the schedule's going to be. And I think sometimes you go into these films and you're almost worried that it's going to drag out too long. So I think for this one, I mean, I know you had a great experience doing it in one block, and I was very adamant about putting a cap on the whole thing. Like, we have to finish by end of the year. Sorry, guys. Yeah, and that's what it's like even when you're on contracts.
Yeah.
It'll have a deadline,
Yeah.
so you've got to try to adhere to the same thing, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Otherwise the film just doesn't get done.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
man. You've got to crack the whip a little
Yeah.
bit. You've got to get it done. Otherwise, you're waiting and waiting and waiting, and people lose interest. So.
Yeah. Well, would you care to tell me about the audition process?
Mm.
What was that like?
I was in your corner.
Yes. Thank you. Well, do you want me to go first?
Sure.
Sure, why not? So I applied for the role of Philippa on Star Now, and I hadn't worked with anyone that was involved in the project before, and so I just applied and got an email saying that they wanted to see me for an audition, which was amazing. So obviously learnt the stuff, went in, and it was actually my first in-person audition since
I
before
remember
COVID.
that now. Yes.
Wow.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Yep, because
like-
we were talking about there'd been all those self-tapes and
Yeah.
and how kind of boring it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also just so different, because self-tapes you can obviously do as many takes as you like and then submit the one that you like the most.
Yeah,
And
chop
it's-
and change. And
yeah. And but the other side to that was it was tricky to get people to read for you that, I could only use my partner to read for me, or like someone that lived nearby or something, because you weren't allowed to have people over. And so it was really nice to be in the room with someone who I knew was actually going to be the character in the film as well. But it was incredibly nerve-wracking because you kind of only had like 2 goes to do it, and then they were like, all right, thanks for coming in, and I was like, okay, bye. So but then got a call back and did the call back, and that was hard as well. And then got an email that was like, we had so many people, thank you so much for coming in. And I was kind of like, oh, this is going downhill. It's like, sorry, but no. And then it was like, but after, lots of consideration or whatever it was, we would like to offer you the role for Philippa. And I just about passed out. I was like, oh my God. So yes, it was hard, but fun. I like auditioning in person more, I think, than self-tapes. Yeah.
Definitely. And, the competition was pretty fierce. There were a lot of people that were great actors going for the role, but with Jeannie, she just kind of was hand in a glove,
Yeah. What about? Like,
Yeah, right? Like, oh my God, tell me more. I'm joking. Don't say anymore.
I think you just kind of know your click as well, because obviously I was doing the response reads for the auditions and trying to find Philippa as well, and you just know when you know. I think and sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes you're going into an audition and, well, let's say you're making a film and you're waiting for the person to come in, and you're looking at the door and they're just not coming in. So it's like we're lucky. We're lucky when it worked, and you're lucky when it works. Sometimes it doesn't work. Like if you cast an actor, or you're the actor being cast because you were second preference or something. It doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
So in this case, it was perfect.
And it was because the Star Now casting said, must have brown hair, brown eyes, because
Oh,
the
yeah,
younger
there
version
was
was
a-
cast. She was
yeah.
brown hair, brown
Yeah.
eyes, and I was like,
Colour thing.
oh my god, like this never happens. They always
That's
want blonde,
cool.
blue eyes, or you know,
That's
all this
cool.
other stuff. And so, for me, that is it was.
You can already tick those boxes.
Exactly. I
You're
was like, brown
already
hair, yes, brown eyes,
on
yes,
the
okay.
way.
Like
this is
an
really
eighth of the
for
way
me.
there.
Very cool.
Yeah. What about you? What was your audition process?
I guess because I had worked in development on the film beforehand, it was probably more about trying to match up.
Yeah.
You know, and it's interesting you talked about colour, because quite often the trouble I've had is being blonde-haired, blue-eyed.
Yeah,
Because, Because a lot of the, you know, let's say the stereotypical male is normally tall, dark, handsome.
Yeah, the brooding.
So I'm,
The
but in this
breedings,
case,
yes.
in fact, I remember now saying that to you. I said, this is
Yeah.
going to be nice because I'm blonde hair blue, you're brown with hazel.
Weird contrast.
That's what I
yeah,
mean.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
to me, that does look better on screen anyway, just from a visual perspective. It's that whole Daniel Craig, James Bond thing. Every time you see him up against a European or a brunette, it just, I don't know, just visually pleasing, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, nice little inverse on that.
You know.
Yeah, well, you guys seem to click really well. I'm sure you would have had a nice, smooth rehearsal process. Do you have any highlights from that?
Can I say?
Yeah, you go.
I just remember there was this really funny rehearsal we did, and you'll have to remind me what I did, but
You need to remind me what I can't remember what you're
It was
talking
like,
about.
the second rehearsal, and
Yeah.
you were starting at the end of the room. We're both at opposite ends of the room, and whatever I was doing, when you came a couple of steps away from me, you'd start laughing because I was doing something. Do you remember this? I don't know if I was doing something wrong or I was falling out of character, but you'd burst out laughing.
Do
you remember that?
I don't know.
Oh, I've got a visual image of this moment, but I can't for the life of me remember what I was doing.
Is it when? Because this is what I was going to bring up, but I wasn't sure if it was happening in the rehearsal process or when we started filming. The Bruce Willis thing. Was that
Maybe
what
it
you were
was
talking
that.
about?
Maybe it was that. Maybe
I
it was
don't
that.
remember.
Yeah,
Because that's what I was going to bring
It might
up.
have been a tonal thing. Yeah, it was, Jane. You're
Was
right.
it?
It was a tonal thing.
Yeah.
I was coming off an action film, and so I had a tone and a raspiness in my voice that I was trying to shake off. And there was a couple of takes there we did where I was still in the other character.
Yeah, 100%.
And you were pissed yourself
And it was that. And I was, and obviously it's rehearsal, so we were kind of, you know,
had a
still
license
figuring
to,
stuff
yeah.
out and everything. License to Kill. He's still in action.
Oh my god.
But yeah, so I was kind of listening to him, and you're like, you're talking really like mysteriously to me about,
my God.
and then Dia was kind of like, you got this Bruce Willis thing going on, and we just burst out laughing, and then throughout filming, it would, if he happened to
pop
fall
up.
into it again, Dia would just be like, Bruce is back. We need to let's get Nate back.
Get
let's
Bruce
get
out.
get
Yeah.
Bruce out, and yeah.
Dia just thinks I look like Bruce Willis. She
Oh
really
my
does.
god. It's a Dr.
Sorry.
Jekyll and Mr. Hyde moment.
Right.
But yeah, that was funny.
It was
That fun.
funny.
That
Yeah.
was fun, So,
Yeah, I think it was, and you know, sometimes obviously just figuring out spatially what you're doing and all that, because the lines and the words are one thing, but then what you're physically doing adds a whole other step to it. So, so sometimes
The
we just,
translation.
sometimes we'd just be walking around the room being like, where are we actually going? What are we doing? What are we trying to figure out here? And yeah, so
Yeah,
it
true, because
was
you're not on set.
not
You're
on
trying to figure it
set.
out. Yeah.
we hadn't seen, well, I don't know if you had, but I haven't
No, I
seen
hadn't.
locations yet or anything like that. So
No.
it's like spatially, what are we actually doing? And yeah.
The blocking, yeah.
Yeah.
Which then you obviously, you're right, because you rehearse, but then you've also got the blocking on set. So
On set.
It's always morphing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was going to bring me to my next question. Shifting from rehearsal to set, like,
Yep.
were there any other moments like that where you just burst out laughing, or they were quite memorable?
See?
The one that I remember burst out laughing with wasn't with you.
Right.
It was when I was in the car with
Was it with Callum?
Callum and oh my God, what's her name?
Co-lead?
Kimmy.
Oh, Kimmy. Callum
Because
and Kimmy.
Callum and Kimmy, because
Yep.
she was in the back of the car.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't know she was in the back of the car.
Oh.
She had gotten in to help Callum with the gear stick or something. It was a bit of an old truck and it had a bit of a trick to it or something. So the scene was that Callum was in the truck and I had to jump in, and we kind of just drove down the driveway to make it look like we were leaving. And so Kimmy pops up to do whatever she has to do with the gear stick, and I went to put my arm back, and I thought there was like a dog or something in the car, so I just screamed, and everyone outside of the car, like Hayden, sound guy, everyone was just like, "What is going on?" But everything else, I feel like
Pretty smooth.
pretty smooth, yeah. Like little jokes happening on set and all that sort of stuff. But it was like once we kind of got into what we had to do, it was
refreshing because it was very professional.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we knew what we had to do and we just did it.
Yeah. And it wasn't like our scenes together were particularly. Some of them were really hard and emotional, and some
I see
of
what you
them
mean.
were.
They weren't so far off the spectrum that they were going to be like tough or awkward or challenging. Like that, it was pretty manageable.
Yeah, but I mean in the sense that, like, for bursting out laughing or something funny happening, like we didn't really have any
like
of that
a hyper
kind of
reality moment.
Yeah,
true. There wasn't much. It was more. You're right. It was more structured rather than hyper.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
Well, interestingly, I have a note here about 3 missing kids. Care to elaborate on that?
I know what this is.
Yeah.
She hates this.
I'm ready to hear it.
I won't go into it too much, but I just remember, like, when we went out to shoot in Daylesford, you know, I'm one of those guys, I like to know the place I'm shooting in and do a little bit of research. And when we got to the property, where we shot the Airbnb stuff, the landlord, the first thing she told me was this story about how possibly 1900s, early 1900s, there were 3 children that went walkabout and went missing. And then sometime later, I don't know how much time later, but they kind of found these poor 3 kids and they were dead. They found their skeletons. And so I started telling the story and Jeannie's like, no, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. And I thought, oh, yeah, okay.
Because he's like, there's this walking. Well, we got there and I was like, oh my God, this place is beautiful. Like the scenery is amazing. And it's just like backs up onto these mountains. And he's like, yeah, there's a walking track that goes through there. I'm like, cool, I'd love to do it. And then he's like, yeah, you want to know how they named this walking track or whatever it was? And he tells me the story and I'm just like, I want to go home. I don't want to be here anymore. There's going to be children haunting me in my sleep now. Like it was just horrifying.
Yeah.
But
typical where my mind went. And
Do you normally have an aversion for like ghost stories and like myths and stuff?
I have never watched a horror movie in my life.
Never.
That's kind of cool though.
No.
Like you know what you like and you know what you don't like.
I would love to because there are obviously so many films that are so amazing that are horror and all that sort of stuff. But I just can't. Gory, I can do because I can sort of watch it and I can be like, yeah, visual effects, makeup, whatever, that's
Take
cool.
yourself out of it almost.
Yeah. But as soon as it's like a ghost or a possession or it's like no one can protect you against that stuff. Like, you know, you can't stab a ghost. You can't headlock a ghost until they pass out. You can't, there's nothing.
Touching on this though, it's interesting because a lot of my background is in this area.
Yeah.
And so what I loved about Disconnected and acting with you is that it was outside of that.
Yeah.
Like there was a very, you know, I guess sort of conscious attitude about this where I certainly embellished doing a drama. Do you know, it was, and I wanted to show my acting chops and also show, you know, my diversity that I think hadn't really been realised, and that was what I loved about acting with you and Disconnected was getting away from all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
The cult genre stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
You know,
for sure.
And I will say this too, this will be the first movie I'll be able to show my mother.
Hey. Achievement unlocked.
So,
New trophy end.
Oh my God. Well, you guys seem to get along really well. Like you just have a very natural, dynamic?
Dynamic,
relationship.
thank you.
Apart from that, like, what would you say each other's, I guess, strengths are as actors, as people?
Do you mind if I go first?
Please do.
What I really love about Jeanette's style of acting is that she's very on point. Like, you never faltered. Like to me, when you're an actor and when you're working with actors, there's a kind of a hemisphere, you know, that you have to I guess rise to. There's a vibrational, you know, space that you need to rise to act. You know, you're not being a pedestrian. You can't act and sit back, and you don't want to go too far in. You've got to hit this point, this plateau. And I just found with you it was so consistent. So when she has to turn it on, boom, she's there. And that really impressed me. And it you're just so consistent, and like when you need to turn it on, you can.
That's nice.
Yeah, man. And I think pleasure. And I think that's from your years of training and practice and stage, because you can tell when someone can act, and you can tell when someone can't act. You really can. And with Jeannie, it's so consistent. So that's my compliment to you.
Lovely.
Aw.
Thanks. That's very nice.
Pleasure.
And look, the same goes to you, but I also found that if there was something that, because obviously you bounce off the other actor and you kind of got to do the give and take and all that sort of stuff, obviously. And I just found that if I was personally struggling with something, I'd have a chat to Nate about it and be like, can we try this? Can we, whatever it is? And he would really work hard, and we would work really hard together to kind of help each other achieve those things that we needed to, and those places that we needed to get to emotionally and all of that sort of stuff. And
Yes.
also that it was just easy. I feel
cool.
like,
Oh, good.
like
Nice.
it was easy to,
Nice.
and we all had that mutual, feeling with Dia as well. Like Dia directing, she had a lot of trust in us. I feel like
True.
as well. I felt that she trusted me, which is
100%.
always really nice. That
Yeah.
if you feel like you're doing the right thing, it's. And every now and then I was like, "Was that okay, Dia?" She's like, "If you don't get notes from me, it means you're doing good." And I'm like, "Okay, awesome." yeah. So.
Did you find it's nice when you are in a movie and like after the first day or first couple of days, the penny drops and you figure out you're doing okay, and then you
Yes.
can just act?
And do you know what? So this is actually the first feature-length film that I've done other than theatre stuff. And what I loved about theatre stuff is that you've just got so much rehearsal and so much time with the other actors to be able to really just fall in and get comfortable. And then you've got like 9 or 10 shows or however many shows you do. So you do get that comfortability. And doing like short films and all that sort of stuff in between is still so much fun, but you only have like 1 or 2 days of shooting or whatever it is. And so for me, I not so much anymore, but when I was first starting out just doing short films, I was kind of like on set for the day, like, oh my God, I'm so nervous. And then it was done. And I'm just like, no, I
but
want to
hang
go
on.
back and
Yeah,
do it
yeah,
again.
right.
So this was the first experience where, yes, like I already had felt so comfortable with everyone on the first day because everyone was just so beautiful. Like I loved the whole team,
Love
like
that.
everyone that was there.
Love it.
But yeah, by the second day, there was just such a nice flow, and we all knew our characters and we all knew the story, and so
Yes.
to be able to do that for 7 days straight was just
Bliss.
like, oh, it was amazing.
Bliss.
Yeah.
You're right, because remember when we got to the end, we kind of didn't want it to finish.
Yeah.
I think I even said that to you. I said, don't go.
Yeah, it was seriously like, isn't there just like, can I just pretend, can I just be another character,
can we
just do a
write
bit of
some
makeup on me
more,
and I'll just play someone else
you know,
now?
scenes?
So,
Aesthetics.
yeah, right. No,
And
no,
that's
no.
awesome you said that, because that also doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
I think you're right. I think the camaraderie, it was a very much, pat on the back for everybody.
Yeah.
And complimenting and encouraging.
And supporting.
Encouraging the process as a one unit,
Yeah.
which is really important. That's beautiful. I love that you
Yeah.
said that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
All
was
right,
nice.
well, for the inverse, curiously, what's some constructive criticism that you give each other? During the on-set process, rehearsal
Constructive
process,
criticism. Ooh,
anything really.
She's gonna love that.
Yeah, no, you go
Should I
first.
go first? Shall I down you before you down me?
Absolutely.
You guys are lifting each other up now. Time to bring them
Yeah.
down.
Yeah, it's like, let's just knock each other off those pedestals. Yeah, right, do it now.
Get 'em.
You ready for step in the back now?
Yeah.
No, I think constructive criticism. I mean, this is going to sound like, I'm blowing smoke up your rear end, but I don't have any.
Yeah.
I don't have any for you, Jean.
No.
I don't. I just think like you're already there. You're in the pocket. I don't have any criticism at all.
Amazing.
I
wouldn't
can't think of
either.
one thing.
The thing that I felt for myself that I know that I want to work on was that, how we had the public stuff that we had to do, like when we were at the lake and when we were at...
Yes. Yes.
I'm trying not to give stuff away.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
bit of-
Spoilers.
Yeah, that stuff.
Yeah. Yep. The outdoor exterior scenes.
Yeah,
Yep.
like for me, I still can get a little bit self-conscious if there are people around.
Right.
Like,
that's
and
that's
if
a
there's
process.
people going past or something like that, that like there was these two scenes that I'm talking about. And it happens, like as soon as you're out in public and you see a camera crew or something, you're kind of like, oh, what's happening over there? And like naturally you want to go over and watch and all that sort of stuff. And for me, it was distracting to know, especially for the nature of those scenes, distracting to know that people were watching,
Passerbys.
and I
I
was
get
just
it.
getting really like,
Right.
oh my God, of all the stuff they could have been watching, I really don't want them to watch
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so
I
for
feel
me,
that.
I'd like to, and I think you might have made a comment too when we were at the train station, that it was like, there's just this guy in my line of sight and I can see
in my
him,
eye line, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And so
Get the AD to kick him out, get him out of there.
right, yeah, but then it's like you can't because it's a public place. You can't tell
course,
people to
yeah.
go away. So
Depends on the angle. Yeah.
yeah. But
True.
so for me, I feel like I'm trying to anyway practice just
So that's more personal.
blocking stuff out, and yeah.
Oh, you're
that was
absolutely, you're absolutely right. It's all about what you're disengaging from
Yes.
and trying to focus even more so. And I
Yes.
think, you hear these stories about, when actors are doing green screen and there's nothing to respond to. It's
Yeah.
also the same problem.
For sure.
Either having too many distractions or having nothing.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, and having to, yeah.
Do you think coming from a theatre background as well, where it's rehearsed and then you put on a show and it's contained and the audience is in a spot, has not conditioned you, but that is your learning, is going from stage to screen? Is that just a part of the transition? Because when you're on set, it's a bit chaotic. There's a lot of things out of control.
Yeah, for
Is
sure.
it one of those?
For
Is it
sure.
a transition?
I think with theatre, the audience is there, but you know that they're there. And they have paid to come and
see that
you,
show.
and you know that you're performing it for them.
Gotcha.
Whereas
If it's a random...
if it's just a
Right,
random
yeah.
that's like staring at you
Yeah,
and like
and-
heavy breathing while you're trying to be
And you're
serious
trying to
or
tell someone,
emotional,
yeah,
and
yeah.
so
Got it.
it was. I think it was
Challenging.
more that
Yeah.
more and because people are in the situations that we were in for those scenes in real life all the time, but there's not necessarily focus drawn to it because of all the camera crew and all that sort of stuff. So you walk past this kind of stuff happening all the time, but then as soon as people see, it's like, oh my God, what are they doing?
Well,
What are they
it's-
shooting?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw a YouTube video recently with Jason Statham, and
Mm-hmm.
they had permission to shoot in a park, but they had this one guy that
Yeah.
just kept coming down and getting in their frames or their eye lines, and I saw the AD get up and run after him. He was going to try and punch him on.
Oh, Jesus.
Like it was, it can get to that point. But anyway,
Yeah.
that's another story.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, we
What
could
else?
go on.
Wow. Well, then
Yeah.
taking that into account and your experience on your first ever feature-length film, which do you prefer at the end of the day?
What do you mean? Like,
Theatre
oh,
or film?
wow, what a question.
I know to put you in the deep end, but
I like them both for very different reasons.
yeah.
I feel like for theatre, there's just this level of preparation that is just, I
Pretty
think
big.
you can
Yeah.
get not that you can get lazy, but there's a bit of a safeguard with film where if something doesn't go right, you can kind of cut and then let's just give it another go or whatever. Or if you're not feeling it in the moment, you can kind of
Take
be
a
like,
break.
can we just have a second?
back.
I need a,
Yep.
But in theatre, it's like you've just
don't
got to
have that
go.
luxury.
Like there
It's
is
90
no.
minutes. Press go.
And
boom.
the rehearsal process is like, your lines, your partner's
You almost
lines,
know all the
everything
lines.
that's happening on
Yep.
stage, everything. So it's like, if I was on stage with Nate, for example, and one of us forgot our lines, we would be able to
impro.
get impro and get each other back on track
Back
and
on
all
track.
that type of stuff. And
Absolutely.
yeah, but then film,
point.
it's like,
It's breaking it up.
it's breaking it
bits.
up, and it's a bit trickier because you have to jump from. You could film the last scene of the film first, and then jump from all different bits and
Could
pieces.
shoot the
so
last
it's
scene
like,
first.
yeah, and then in one day you go from day 1 in the story to day 7 in the story, back to day 3 in the story. So it's like, what was
Continuity.
my hair? What was what was I feeling? What time of day was it?
And you're brushing on another good point. In a feature, I think it's imperative that you rehearse.
Yeah.
Because if you kind of go out there, which happens most times, they don't have much rehearsal.
Yeah.
You go out there flying blind, I don't think you're going to get as better product.
Yeah.
Because like I see the way Jean works, she knows how I work, you doctor your script.
Yeah.
You know what emotion's going to be in every scene. So when it is broken up, you go, oh yeah, and you know how to access that emotion
Yeah.
on that day.
yeah.
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 That's quite emotionally exhausting. How do you both handle it? Like, what are your techniques?
I would say for me, it's more just managing myself. It's me knowing me, you know. So, I mean, I would, you know, drink at least 2 litres of water a day, you know, try to remain healthy, eat well, sleep well. You know, it's just about general health, I think.
Yeah, and the preparation, like knowing the night before what you're going to be doing for the day, and just
That's
being
true. Not
able
bombarding
to
yourself.
Yeah.
Break it up bit by bit. Yeah, I would often
like
do that.
obviously like you know, you read everything enough that it's the lines and all that are in your body and you know what's going on, but then because it is so choppy and changey in one day, you could be like happy-go-Larry for the first scene, and then the second scene you've broken down and cried, and then the third scene you're like getting ready to go out with your friends, you know, like it's just the array that you sometimes go through. I thank Dia every day for having all of my crying scenes in one day, because then I was just like cry in the morning, cry in the afternoon, cry at night time, and it was like, yes, all the crying stuff's done, let's go. But so like, and I think, if I'm not wrong, she did that consciously. So I was just like, that was really helpful for me. And just luckily I was crying in the same place all throughout the film. So it was like amazing. But
I can't wait to see that.
Oh, it was hard. But you know, all the crew were like, let's just get skeleton crew on. This is a bit of a tough, you know, day
I like
and
that.
all that.
I like
and that was really
yeah,
considerate
adhering
too.
to the actual scene that's going on
For
as well, which is
sure.
important.
Yeah.
And also just from a filmmaking point of view, you know, if you don't need all the crew on a particular scene, why would you hire them? You're wasting money. I mean, when you do a drone shot, it's the drone operator. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
kind of great to be able to cater to, like, it's cater to the environment or the situation.
Oh, for sure.
Well,
Yeah.
what would you say your individual, I guess, unwinding rituals are? Like a long day after set.
I like a bath. That's just me.
Yeah.
I like a
With a
long
bath
hot
bomb in there,
bath.
or-
I need a bath.
Some bubbles.
Yeah.
A few bubbles.
Bit of lavender
glass
in the
of
background.
whatever, just a bit of music,
Yeah.
you know,
Some wine.
reset. Yeah.
I was going to say wine, like
Yeah.
100%.
She
It's
loves a
just
wine.
like down a glass,
Yeah.
cheese board. No, I don't. I think it's
indulge.
yeah.
Just those
and,
simple pleasures.
and I think also just the process of getting out of costume, taking off the makeup.
Makeup,
it's
yep.
like that's done for the day, and then just kind of mentally like. I always have a far drive because I live a bit further away.
that's good downtime.
and I think the drive home is
That's
always just a
reflective.
nice, like put on some music or whatever. And I don't drink the wine on the way home. I
Not
wait
in
till
the
I
car.
get home. But
yeah.
yeah, just the
Downtime.
winding down and kind of regrouping to that's done, cool. And then when I get home, figure out what I got to do for the next day and do it.
And do it.
Nice, cool.
Yeah.
Well, you told us that you found the role through Star Now, and you were involved heavily in development. But can you tell me more about your agency representation?
Shall I go first?
Yes.
I can say I'm somebody that's had the best and the worst. So for me, it's a lifelong process. You never be with the same agent forever.
Yeah.
And when you're young and starting out, obviously you're limited because you don't have as much experience yet. So you have to kind of work your way up the ropes.
Yeah.
So I think it's a gradual process. It's a lifelong process. You don't want to burn bridges because obviously a lot of agents know each other.
Yeah.
It's tricky.
Yeah.
But I think the right agent presents itself when you're at that next level anyway. I think we all know as artists where we want to go, and as long as, you know, the books or the agency is, you know, going to not only represent you well, but offer the parts that you're looking for,
Yeah.
then that's what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, well, I came into my agent about 6 months ago, Hell Elite Actors, and I'm loving them. Like, so
Oh, good.
before that, I was with Real People, and
And you
They
kind
were
of
still-
you exhausted that though, didn't you?
yeah, like, and I was getting a bit of work from them. Like, I was getting extras work, I was getting some commercials, I was getting, you know, and I had really great experiences on set and nice exposure as well, which was nice. And then when I sort of made the jump from kind of just doing acting as my hobby to wanting to do it as what I really want to do, that's when I kind of made the decision to be like, okay, well, I'm going to try and sort of take the next level in representation and all that sort of stuff. And it was a hard process to get,
It's not easy.
you know, like I
There's
did
too many nuances.
Yeah.
Remember we talked about that? The nuances.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's very
Yeah.
tricky to navigate.
Yeah, and I did a heap of research and applied for months and to try and go for the ones that, because you can't just apply for them, you've got to have the
Well,
headshots.
yeah, can you tell me what the process is for applying?
Oh,
You've got to have a really good one sheet for a start.
Yeah.
You've got to have, you know, a condensed kind of, I guess, resume CV, but in one page, and it's still got to show colour. So it's got to be commercial, film, theatre, etc. It's got to have, and you've got to have a good headshot. It's got to be professional. That's the first thing. And then
And
if
the
you've got,
show
and then the
reel.
show reel, and then your equity. You know, if you've got it. So yeah, there's definitely, you know, a process. Casting networks, you know, and it's always evolving as well.
Yeah, and the process was massive. Applying for months and months to, you know, you don't want to obviously apply to like 20 and then just see what happens. Like it was kind of like I applied to my top 4 and then didn't hear anything. So then the next ones and then didn't hear anything again. And so it was just like, okay, well, I'm just going to keep working. And then I, you know, ended up getting with Howler Lead Actors, who I love. You know, like that guy works so hard for me, and he's really great with communication, which I think is super important. Any questions I have, they're always onto it for me, and he always gives me rundowns of the stuff that he submits me for. So, which is really nice as well, because I see that he's working.
You can tell.
Working at it.
You
Yeah.
know, you just know. Yeah, you know when you know, and you also know when
You
don't know.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, that's great. But stepping stones.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, stepping stones.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, from my experience, you need 2 independent feature films with dialogue to get that good agent.
Yeah.
I think you do.
Right.
And I think you need light and shade. I mean,
Yeah.
the best agent I got was because I had a show reel which showed comedy and tragedy, which, let's be honest, that's acting, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think light and shade, just showing a little bit of duality that you can do this, but you can also do that. You know, that's my experience anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Well, now that you've kind of entered the film world with your first feature, do you have, I guess, a checklist for particular talents that you'd love to work with locally?
Locally?
Yeah.
Do you have a checklist for anyone local?
Not anyone. I mean, I really love going out and doing workshops or short courses to sort of experience working with people that I may
not have known.
necessarily
Right,
worked
yeah,
with in
got
the
it.
past. And that's what I like, because I see everyone on you know, TV shows and movies, and it's like, yeah, of course I'd love to work with them, that'd be amazing. But going in and, like, I did a short course with Scott Major recently, and he was
legend.
amazing, amazing. And then some of the students that I worked with in the class as well were amazing. You know, like,
And how else would you have known?
exactly
if you hadn't have done that
right,
class?
exactly right. And you
Yep.
make such good friends because you're all there trying to achieve the same
thing.
thing. So, you know, I did Scott Major, I worked with Kim Valentine,
Yep.
I've worked, you know, like just so
Some local legends.
so many people that, you know, and that's me going out and paying for the course and doing it because I just want to, you learn so
Connect the
much
dots.
from not only the teachers but from the people that are in your class as well. And so for me, there's not a checklist necessarily, but I just like
You're
going
open
out.
to-
I like going out and just experiencing as much as I can and networking as much as I can
That's so
because
proactive.
yeah.
I'm-
Well, thank you.
Well, I'm going to say that on my local checklist, Jeanette was on mine.
No way.
So,
Dream come true.
I'm-
Done.
I've already. No, I'm a bit more, shall we say, healthy competitive. I like to.
Is it though?
I
Are
don't
you
know.
healthy competitive? You're competitive. Yeah, elaborate on
healthy
that.
out of it. No, I think I do. I think I love to, I guess, be on the pulse.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
I love to know,
Yeah.
you know, who's who. Who's the it girl at the moment? Who's the it guy? You know, what's exciting? What's everyone talking about? And I kind of get a buzz out of that. I call it healthy competition because I feel like, you know, that's what keeps us going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know? And so, like, when I
Definitely.
was in film school, everyone was shooting their films and we were all competing against each other in a sense, but that's what was also driving us.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like I also like to work with actors like yourself that I know are also going to extend me and push me a bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Because, you know, Jean's doing more classes than I am, for example. So I may have done more films, but then when we reach that same point of doing the film together, there's still a weight of experience from both worlds, and then we're able to put that into action.
Of different diversity as well,
Correct.
like the
And-
experience of doing it and the experience of practicing.
Correct.
Yeah.
And and that's a thing because, you know, it's like a boxer who doesn't train and then has to go into a fight. They better be fit and ready, you know, or they're going to get knocked out.
Yeah.
So I think it's the same thing. And that was another tricky, well, that was a point we mentioned on Disconnected, because we had kind of the theatre actress, the television or actress or model, and the indie film guy. You know, that was said, you know, so you had people coming from different backgrounds. So that's where a good director comes in, trying to get them all to rise to the same kind of frequency.
For sure.
But no, Jeannie was definitely on my list of people in Melbourne that I wanted to work with, so I'm glad about that. And I have a few others, and I've already checked a few other boxes, I would say.
That's so good.
That's so great to hear. Well, Nathan, Jeanette, thank you so much for talking with me today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.